Hey guys, I'm Gruz and this is the top 10 most expensive NES games. What if I told you that Ducktales on NES was an expensive game? Would you believe me? Well, it's not a lie. There is a variant of Ducktales that is indeed worth a nice chunk of change. Back in 2013, Capcom decided to reignite our nostalgia with a remastered version of the classic Ducktales NES game. They took the game that we all know and love, spruced it up with updated graphics, and added a modern touch. But here's where it gets intriguing. They also created a limited run of golden NES cartridges, each housing the original Ducktales game. And these weren't just ordinary cartridges, they were made with brand new components, snugly fit into custom painted shells. Capcom only made a mere 150 of these golden treasures, and they sent them out to gaming journalists, who some of which gave away their copies through contests. They weren't just cartridges either, they came in DuckTales themed lunchboxes, complete with recreated vintage ads, and were padded with shreds of real US dollar bills. Now if you got your sights on owning one of these beauties, be prepared to dig deep into your pockets. A cartridge alone will set you back $1,375, while the whole package, lunchbox and all, goes for just over $1,600. Now let's talk about Flintstones, The Surprise at Dinosaur Peak. This game is a real hidden treasure. Released in 1994, it's an extreme latecomer to the NES party. And to pile on more obscurity, it never actually hit store shelves for purchase. It was exclusively meant for rental. This means there was never a point where you could just stroll into a store and pick up a copy. It was never that easy. If you wanted to own it, you'd have to steal it from the video store. Mine! The game follows the iconic duo, Fred and Barney, on a daring mission to rescue their beloved children, Pebbles and Bam Bam. What makes this game special is its vibrant graphics, catchy tunes, and gameplay that mixes traditional platforming with sports-style stages. Because of its late release, limited production run, and the fact that it's a rental game that probably didn't get handled well, finding a physical copy of this game in good condition at a reasonable price is a real challenge for collectors. As a result, it's earned its reputation as one of the most sought-after and expensive titles in the NES library. Collectors and enthusiasts have been known to shell out upwards of $1,390 for a loose copy, while a complete in-box copy can fetch a staggering $2,675. Next, let's take a venture into the quirky and unconventional side of NES gaming with Hot Slots, a game that's as peculiar as they come. Hot Slots is a game that's, well, it's a bit out there. It's essentially a slot machine gambling simulator designed with adults in mind. What makes this game truly unique is what happens when you strike it big at the virtual casino. It's a far cry from the typical family-friendly NES titles. Of course, it's worth noting that Hot Slots was an unlicensed cartridge, and Nintendo would not have approved of its content. But what makes this game valuable is that it wasn't produced in large quantities. In fact, adult-themed games for the NES are a rarity in their own right. Believe it or not, this highly sought-after game regularly commands a price of over $1,400 for a loose copy and approximately $2,000 for a complete in-box version. Another game from the world of adult-themed NES games happens to be number 7 on the list. This is Peekaboo Poker, a game that, thanks to its nudity and rarity, has earned itself a spot as a holy grail for NES collectors. This game is essentially a strip poker simulator where you find yourself playing a standard game of 5-card poker against one of 3 women. Win their money, and they'll start betting their clothes. Quite the unconventional NES experience, I must say. But here's the kicker. Peekaboo Poker is not just an oddity, it's incredibly expensive. If you're in the market for a loose copy, you're looking to shell out over $1,600. And if you're after the full package with box and all, be prepared to part with a cool $2,000. Now let's take a journey further down the realm of NES oddities with a game that's almost as infamous as it is rare. Cheetahmen II. Cheetahmen II hails from a little-known company called Active Enterprises. They're the same folks who unleashed Action 52 upon the world, an unlicensed NES cartridge featuring a whopping 52 games, most of them of questionable quality. Cheetahmen II, on the other hand, was a sequel to one of the games found on the Action 52 cartridge. It takes players through 6 stages filled with enemies like insects, animals, and whatever this thing is. It's a flimsy game riddled with typos, game-breaking bugs, and gameplay that's generally considered to be some of the worst in the NES library. In fact, it was so bad that it wasn't ever even officially released. You see, back in 1996, a treasure trove of around 1,500 of these games were discovered in a Florida warehouse. That's when these games found their way into the hands of the most dedicated collectors. Cheetahmen II is often regarded as one of the worst games of all time, but you'd be astounded at how much this infamous title goes for today. Price charting pegs a loose copy at over $1,800, and a complete in-box copy can set you back a whopping $5,000. Now let's step back in time to a game that's both a hidden gem and a prime example of impeccable timing, or the lack thereof. This is Little Samson, a late-era NES platformer where you play as 4 characters, each with their own abilities, in a quest to defeat a dark prince who's plotting to take over the world. In the backdrop of 1992, as the NES era drew to a close and the Super Nintendo claimed center stage, games like Little Samson faced an uphill battle for recognition. This late NES release came with a small print run and minimal marketing, which meant it largely flew under the radar. It's too bad. Little Samson had all the markings of an instant classic, but its timing worked against it. As a result, it's become a sought-after rarity in the world of NES collecting. If you're thinking about adding this one to your collection, be prepared to part with just over $2,000 for a loose copy, and a hefty $4,250 for a complete in-box copy. Did you know the original Mega Man can fetch a pretty penny? Well, it's not just any Mega Man. It's the early variant with 5 screws on the back of the cartridge. You see, most NES games have 3 screws on the back, but in the early days, Nintendo used 5 screws. Now, collectors, they're a discerning bunch, and they're quite keen on these little details and quirks. Those cartridges with 5 screws, they've got quite the allure. Just how much allure, you ask? Well, your standard Mega Man might go for about $85 loose, or around $550 complete in box. But that early 5-screw variant? Hold on to your hat. Loose copies of that go for just under $11,000. And a complete in box edition? You're looking at a staggering $38,475. It's enough to make anyone's eyes widen. In 1987, there was something rather intriguing released for the NES by a company called Bandai. It was known as the Family Fun Fitness Pad, a controller that you'd lay on the floor and step on to play games. It was revolutionary for its time. Now, Bandai also released a game called Stadium Events that worked with this unique pad, where you'd compete in Olympic-inspired events right in your living room. But here's where it gets really fascinating. When Nintendo saw what Bandai had cooked up, they quickly bought the North American rights to both the pad and Stadium Events. They rebranded the pad as the Power Pad and the game as World Class Track Meet. Now here's the kicker. Around 200 copies of the original Bandai Stadium Events had already shipped to retailers before Nintendo swooped in. So Nintendo recalled those original cartridges and replaced them with their own version. Now fast forward to today. Only a handful of those original Bandai Stadium Events cartridges have surfaced, making this release incredibly desirable for the most dedicated Nintendo collectors. Now what's it worth, you might wonder? Well, a loose copy of Stadium Events can command just over $16,000. And a complete in-box copy? That's right around $55,000. Back in 1991, Nintendo hosted a video game competition called Nintendo Campus Challenge across nearly 60 college campuses, offering students a shot at winning new cars and cash scholarships. This competition tasked players with 3 different games, granting them 6 minutes and 21 seconds to accomplish 3 feats. First, in Super Mario 3, they had to collect 25 coins. Then, in the pinball game Pinbot, they aimed to score 100,000 points. Finally, they spent their remaining time accumulating as many points as possible in Dr. Mario. Now check this out. There's only one known surviving cartridge from this competition. The history and rarity of this cartridge are unparalleled. It surfaced at a garage sale in 2006 and shortly after changed hands for a cool $14,000. Just a few months later, it resold on eBay for an astonishing $20,000. Wow. The Nintendo World Championship of 1990 stands as a legendary chapter in gaming history. This tournament unfolded across 29 cities in the US, offering players a chance to compete for a $10,000 savings bond, a brand new car, and a 40-inch TV. The competition revolved around a custom NES cartridge, which challenged players to complete 3 NES games within a tight time frame. In Super Mario Bros., participants had to collect 50 coins as swiftly as possible. In Rad Racer, they raced through the first track in record time. And finally, in Tetris, it all came down to who could rack up the highest score before the clock ran out. A mere 90 Nintendo World Championship cartridges were awarded to the finalists, and 25 shimmering gold variants were distributed through a contest in Nintendo Power magazine. Due to their rarity and the remarkable history surrounding these cartridges, they have become some of the most expensive and coveted cartridges in the history of gaming. As of now, the gray variant can command nearly $23,000, and the exceedingly rare gold variant hasn't been seen for sale since 2015, when it fetched an astonishing $26,677. These cartridges are the stuff of collectors' dreams. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like on it, and if you enjoy top 10 lists, check out this video I made about the top 10 moments in Super Mario on NES. That was a fun video. Thanks for your time today, guys. Goodbye.